As the day wore on, the village buzzed with nervous energy. People gathered in small groups, murmuring in low tones. There was an edge to their conversations, fear laced with uncertainty. The news of the elder's death had sent a ripple through the community, and no one dared to speak too loudly. Adan couldn't shake the feeling that something was closing in on her. She tried to push it out of her mind, but every glance from a villager felt heavier, as though they were all silently accusing her, or perhaps, waiting for her to do something. She avoided the marketplace, walking quickly back to her house, the weight of the necklace around her neck growing unbearable. Her mother, Ifoma, sat by the window, mending clothes. Her face was lined with worry, her eyes scanning the sky outside as if she expected a storm to roll in. "Mother, I need to ask you something," Adan said, her voice trembling. Ifoma looked up, her eyes sharp. "What is it, my daughter? Did you ever tell me the truth about the necklace? What it really means?" Adan couldn't look her mother in the eye. Ifoma's fingers froze mid-stitch. She sighed, the heaviness in her breath filling the room. "I've always told you the stories, Adan. But I never thought you'd come to wear it. You were supposed to leave it behind, like we all did." Adan frowned. "What do you mean? It was my grandmother's. It's a family heirloom." "No," Ifoma whispered, her voice barely audible. "It is more than that. It is the key. And it is a burden." Adan's heart raced. "A burden?" Ifoma stood and walked over to the small table where the necklace lay, gleaming in the soft light of the room. "When your grandmother died, I thought it was the end of it. But I see now that it was just the beginning." Adan reached for the necklace, but her mother stopped her with a firm grip on her wrist. "Do not touch it," Ifoma hissed, her eyes wide with fear. "I did not want you to wear it. I knew what would happen. The spirits of the past, they wake when the necklace is worn. And they do not care for the living." Adan recoiled. "What do you mean? Why didn't you tell me this before?" Ifoma sat down, her hands trembling. "Because I hoped you would never have to know. That necklace, it was cursed long ago. When the Burning War ended, your great-great-grandmother made a pact. She bound the spirit of Azuruok to it. The beast spirit who called the fire down from the sky. The very same spirit that destroyed villages and claimed thousands of lives." Adan's mind spun. "The beast spirit?" "Yes," Ifoma said, her voice heavy with sorrow. "The necklace holds the spirit of Azuruok, trapped within the fang. It was meant to be a weapon, a tool of power. But over time, the spirit grew restless. It needed to be set free. And once it finds a new wearer, it begins to stir again." Adan felt a chill run through her. "You mean, I'm the one who is supposed to release it?" Her mother nodded, her eyes filled with regret. "You have been chosen. The spirit will not rest until it has its full power. And once it is awakened, it will not stop." Adan backed away, her mind reeling. The necklace. The whispers. The vision of the woman who had been her ancestor. It was all connected, and she was at the center of it. "You cannot fight it, Adan," Ifoma said softly. "The only way to stop it is to destroy the necklace. But that is no simple task. The spirit will resist. It will fight you every step of the way." Adan's heart pounded in her chest. "What am I supposed to do?" Ifoma's face twisted in anguish. "There is a ritual. A way to sever the connection. But it is dangerous. You must go to the cave of the elders. There, you will find the answers you need. The necklace can be undone, but it will not be easy." Adan swallowed hard. The idea of leaving the village, of facing whatever lay ahead, filled her with terror. But she knew that there was no other choice. The necklace was already changing her, pulling her towards something she couldn't fully understand. "I will go," Adan said, her voice barely a whisper. Ifoma reached out and held her hand, her grip firm. "Be careful, my daughter. The spirits are not kind. And once you begin this journey, there will be no turning back." As night fell, the village seemed to hold its breath. The whispers of the elders could be heard in the wind, carried from hut to hut. No one spoke openly of the curse, but the fear was palpable. Adan knew that her every move was being watched, and not just by the villagers. The necklace burned against her chest, an ever-present reminder of the power she now wielded. The whispers were louder, more insistent, like a slow drumbeat echoing in the back of her mind. She had no choice but to listen. Whatever the spirits wanted from her, they would stop at nothing to get it. Adan lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, the shadows around her growing darker, deeper. She couldn't escape the feeling that something ancient was awakening, and that the fate of the entire village rested in her hands. The following morning, she packed her belongings, a small bag, some food, and the journal her grandmother had left her. She knew she would need every piece of knowledge she could gather. The journey ahead was uncertain, and the path was fraught with danger. But one thing was certain: the necklace was calling to her, pulling her deeper into the heart of the curse. As Adan stepped outside, the village seemed to hold its breath. The sky was overcast, a dark omen hanging above. The path to the cave of the elders would be long and treacherous. But Adan knew that it was the only way to put an end to the nightmare that had begun the moment she put on the necklace. With one last look at the village, she set off, the weight of her destiny pressing heavily on her shoulders. Adan's steps were steady, but her heart was racing. The village behind her seemed to shrink with every step she took. The familiar sights, the thatched roofs, the children playing by the river, the elders sitting outside their huts, all faded into the distance, as if they were part of a dream. The path to the cave of the elders was not one she had traveled before, not in recent years. It wound through the thick jungle, the air heavy with humidity, the scent of damp earth and rotting leaves clinging to her skin. The trees seemed to loom larger here, their canopies thick and unyielding, blocking out the sun and casting long shadows. She moved quickly, knowing that the longer she stayed in the open, the more likely someone would notice her absence. But as she pressed forward, something in the air began to shift. The wind changed direction again, this time carrying with it a strange, metallic scent. The birds fell silent, their usual songs swallowed by an oppressive stillness. Adan glanced over her shoulder. The path was empty, but it felt like she was being watched. Her breath hitched, and she quickened her pace, hoping to reach the cave before the unease settled deeper into her bones. The cave of the elders was hidden deep within the forest, a place few had ever seen. It was said to be a sacred site, where the village's oldest secrets were kept. Some believed it was the resting place of the ancestors, while others spoke of it as a place where the gods could be heard. But to Adan, it was simply the only hope she had left. As she approached the entrance, she noticed the ancient markings carved into the stone. They were faint, worn by time and weather, but still recognizable. Symbols of protection, of warnings, and of the spirits that guarded the cave. The air around her grew heavier, as if the very ground beneath her feet was holding its breath. With a steady hand, Adan pushed aside the heavy vines that obscured the entrance and stepped inside. The cave was cool, the air thick with the scent of earth and age. The dim light that filtered through the cracks in the stone cast eerie shadows on the walls. The deeper she ventured into the cave, the more oppressive the atmosphere became. It was as though the very walls were closing in around her, squeezing the air from her lungs. But Adan pressed on, following the faint glow that emanated from deeper within. The glow led her to a small, circular chamber at the heart of the cave. In the center of the room stood a stone altar, covered in dust and cobwebs. Around the altar were more symbols, intricate carvings that seemed to pulse with a strange energy. At the far end of the chamber, she could just make out the outline of a door, half hidden by shadows. Without thinking, Adan walked toward the altar. The necklace around her neck grew warmer, the stone nearly burning her skin as she drew closer. She reached out, her fingers trembling as she traced the carvings on the altar. The symbols were familiar, but they made no sense. She had seen them before, but only in fragments, scattered throughout her grandmother's journal. As her fingers touched one of the symbols, the ground beneath her feet shifted. A low rumble echoed through the cave, and the door at the far end slowly creaked open. Adan froze. The room was now alive with a strange, unnatural energy. The air crackled with power, and the whispers in her head grew louder. Adan, Adan, you must complete what was started. Her pulse quickened. The necklace burned against her chest, and for the first time, she felt the weight of the curse settle fully upon her. The whispers were no longer just in her head. They were all around her, coming from the very walls of the cave. She turned toward the open door, knowing that whatever lay beyond it was the key to unlocking the curse. But as she stepped forward, she hesitated. The air felt thick with anticipation. It was as though the very stones of the cave were watching her, waiting for her to make her choice. In that moment, Adan heard a sound behind her, a soft rustling, like footsteps in the dark. She spun around, her heart leaping in her chest. It was Chica. Her cousin's face was pale, her eyes wide with fear. She was holding something in her hands, wrapped tightly in cloth. Chica, what are you doing here? Adan demanded, her voice tight with disbelief. Chica didn't answer immediately. She stepped forward, her gaze locked on the necklace around Adan's neck. I had to follow you. The elders, they said you were in danger. The necklace, it's calling to something, isn't it? Adan nodded slowly. I can feel it. It's pulling me towards something, but I don't know what. Chica's hands trembled as she unwrapped the cloth she had been carrying. Inside was another necklace. This one was smaller, with a simple stone, but the stone glowed faintly, much like the one around Adan's neck. It's from the elders, Chica said, her voice shaking. They said it could protect you, but only if you wear it. Adan stared at the necklace. Protect me from what? The spirit, Chica whispered. Azuru Oak. It will try to take you. It will use the necklace to claim you as its own. Adan's heart sank. She looked back at the altar and then at the door ahead. The whispers had stopped, but the feeling of being watched had intensified. The weight of the choice she had to make pressed down on her like a 100-ton stone. Put it on, Chica urged. It's the only chance you have. Adan hesitated for a moment, but then she reached out and took the smaller necklace. As soon as it touched her skin, the air in the cave seemed to shift again, as if the balance had changed. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, the ground rumbled again, louder this time. The stone altar began to glow, casting an eerie light on the walls of the cave. Adan's eyes widened in realization. It's starting. The whispers returned, louder than ever. But this time, they were not just calling to her. They were calling to something else, something much older, much darker. The air thickened, and the temperature dropped. Adan, Chica whispered, you have to finish it. You have to destroy the necklace. Adan nodded, determination filling her chest. She had no choice now. She had to confront whatever this was, no matter the cost. The spirit of the forest. The forest welcomed her now, not as a visitor, but as one of its own. Trees swayed gently even when the wind was still. Birds followed her path, chirping low, almost like they were speaking. Streams sparkled with an otherworldly shimmer. Nandi could feel it in her bones. Something ancient had awakened, and it was watching. She walked deeper than she ever had before, guided by a feeling, not a direction. The necklace burned warmly against her chest, its glow no longer just a light, it was alive, pulsing like a second heartbeat. By the third day, she reached the edge of a wide valley choked with mist. In the center stood a massive tree, its roots twisted and vast, its trunk glowing faintly green beneath the fog. It was older than any living thing she had ever seen. It was the heart of the forest. As she stepped closer, the mist curled around her like fingers, cold and soft. Her breath came out in white clouds, and the air buzzed, not like insects, but like whispered voices. The ground beneath her feet felt warm, as if the earth itself recognized her. Then, the whispers grew louder, forming words, not in her ears, but in her mind. "Daughter of light, why have you come?" She dropped to her knees. "I seek the truth. About the necklace. About the darkness chasing it, and me." The voice grew softer. Sadder. The light was given to protect. Long ago, before memory, your people stood with the forest. But power was envied, and the light was betrayed. Visions flooded her mind, images of warriors in glowing armor, of harmony between man and spirit, until greed tore them apart. A red stone shattered the balance. The same kind Jabari held. "Now it has returned," the voice whispered, "and you must choose, hide, or become its shield." Nandi's heart pounded. "I'm no warrior." The tree's branches creaked above her, shedding leaves that glowed as they fell. "You do not need to be. You only need courage." The tree's bark opened like a door, revealing a spiral staircase carved into its trunk. Light spilled from within, soft and golden. Without hesitation, Nandi stepped inside. Each step down felt like falling through time. Images lined the walls, murals of her ancestors, battles against shadow beasts, ceremonies held under stars. At the bottom was a chamber filled with roots and vines. In its center sat a pool of glowing water. She knelt beside it, unsure of what to do. Then the necklace floated from her chest on its own and dipped into the pool. The water shimmered, and her reflection changed. She no longer saw a girl with wide eyes and calloused hands. She saw a woman cloaked in light, standing on the edge of war. Behind her, an army of spirits. Ahead of her, fire. She gasped and stepped back, but the necklace returned to her chest, brighter than ever. When she climbed out, the mist had cleared. The forest was silent, reverent. She looked down at her arms. Markings had appeared, glowing lines like roots and stars etched into her skin. Not painful, not permanent, just proof. The spirit of the forest had chosen her. But destiny never comes without danger. She returned to her shelter that night to find it destroyed. Ashes. Smashed baskets. Her handmade tools gone. She stood in the ruins, numb, until she found something that made her blood run cold. A symbol carved into a tree stump. A red spiral. The same one Jabari's stone had glowed with. The next day, she found a message scrawled in mud on a nearby rock. "We see you, girl of light. The darkness wants what you protect." That night, she didn't sleep. She sat by the river with her necklace in her palm, staring into the water. She knew now that Jabari had been just the beginning. Whatever force he had awakened, it was hunting her. But she was no longer running. When the moon rose high, a shape emerged from the trees. It was not human, not spirit, something in between, 7 feet tall, covered in bark and moss. Its eyes glowed white, and its hands were long and clawed. It knelt before her. "I am Balandwa," it said, voice deep like thunder in a cave. "Guardian of the old roots. The forest speaks of you." Nandi stood, cautious. "Why are you here?" "To teach you," he replied. "The shadow is moving. If you do not learn the ways of the old ones, your light will flicker, and go out." She nodded, heart steady. The final light. The days that followed were unlike any Nandi had ever known. Balandwa trained her beneath the ancient canopy, where no sun pierced the leaves. She learned how to feel the forest's heartbeat, how to move without disturbing even a blade of grass. He taught her to listen, not with her ears, but with her soul. To speak to wind, to see with her spirit, to fight not with rage, but with balance. From vines, she learned how to climb like the monkey. From the river, how to flow like water around obstacles. From the fireflies, how to disappear in the dark. And from the forest itself, she learned her greatest lesson. Strength lies in knowing what to protect. One night, as stars blinked overhead and frogs sang lullabies from the riverbank, Balandwa stood before her. "The darkness moves," he said grimly. "It has found its leader." Nandi frowned. "Jabari." Balandwa shook his mossy head. "He was only the first gate. Now, a darker one walks. A child of man, fed with lies, blessed by shadow." He extended his hand. A vine uncurled, holding a small black stone, cracked and pulsing with red. "This is the heart of envy." The one Jabari carried was but a shard. Nandi stared at it, feeling its heat even from afar. The air around it trembled like anger held tight. Balandwa closed his hand around the stone. "If it reaches the village, your people will not survive." That night, she dreamt of her mother. She stood by the river, her hands full of light, her smile soft. "You carry more than hope now, my child," she said. "You carry all of us." Nandi tried to speak, but her voice wouldn't rise. Her mother just nodded and faded like morning mist. When she woke, her necklace was white hot. The war had begun. She arrived at the village as smoke painted the sky black. The new chief, Jabari's uncle, Chief Biko, had fallen under the spell of the dark stone. His skin was pale, his eyes glassy. The villagers, too afraid to question him, followed blindly. Those who resisted were locked away or worse. Nandi stood at the village gate. Alone. A girl with roots on her arms and light in her chest. The guards laughed when they saw her. "Look who returns, the mad girl." She raised her necklace. The light flared so bright it blinded them. When they opened their eyes, she was already inside. The village square was filled with people, standing silently like puppets. At the center stood Biko, holding the full black stone in his hands. It pulsed like a dying heart. He turned slowly when he saw her. "So, the forest witch returns. You were my father's brother," she said quietly. "He trusted you. The people trusted you." Biko's face twisted. "They trusted weakness. Now they will learn strength. Real power comes not from trees or songs, but from fear." He raised the stone. The sky darkened instantly. Thunder cracked. The earth trembled. A shadow beast rose behind him, 10 feet tall, with horns like jagged glass and eyes of flame. The villagers screamed. Nandi stepped forward. "No more." She pressed the necklace to her heart and whispered the forest's name. Light exploded from her body like a wave. The ground lit up in glowing roots that wrapped around the beast's legs. The sky split open with golden lightning. Biko laughed. "You think light can stop this?" Nandi stepped into the center of the storm. I don't think. I know. The necklace rose from her chest, hovered in the air, and shattered. But instead of breaking, it became something more, its shards flying into her arms, her feet, her eyes. She became the light. The battle was like a storm inside a dream. The beast charged, she dodged like wind. It roared, she answered with flame. Biko tried to flee, roots burst from the earth and held him firm. In the end, she stood above the beast's ashes, her skin glowing, her eyes like suns. She looked at the villagers, broken, afraid, silent. She didn't shout. She didn't scold. She just said, "The forest lives. And we must live with it." Weeks later, the village changed. The dark stones were buried deep beneath the sacred tree. The people worked together, replanting, rebuilding, remembering. Chief Biko was never seen again. Some say he disappeared into the hills. Others say the forest took him. Nandi never asked. She had become more than a girl now. More than a protector. She had become a bridge between the past and the future. On quiet nights, children still sit by the fire and ask, "Is it true that the girl with light in her chest fought the shadow and won?" And the elders smile. Yes, they say. She walked into darkness, and came back burning. The end.